You ever work the night shift at a gas station? Not the evening shift, I mean the real graveyard. The one where the world feels like it's holding its breath. That's where this all started. Back in the summer of 2022, I was 19 and working nights at a place called Rusty's Quick Stop, a 24-hour gas station on the edge of Maple Hollow, Arkansas. It was one of those quiet towns where nothing ever happened, and honestly, that's what I liked about it. I took the overnight shift because the pay was steady, and I didn't have to deal with too many people. Just me, the humming coolers, and the distant sound of cicadas or a stray truck engine groaning down the highway. Most nights I stocked shelves, restocked coolers, counted scratch-off tickets, and maybe served the occasional trucker or insomniac. It was peaceful, until it wasn't. The old man in the blue shirt, it was a Thursday night, just after midnight. I had just brewed a fresh pot of coffee in case anyone wandered in, wiped down the counters, and was halfway through restocking the gum rack when I heard the door chime. I looked up, and in walked this old man. He was short, barely reached my shoulder, and dressed like he was headed to Sunday church. Ironed khakis, pale blue button-down shirt, and scuffed brown loafers. He didn't look like he belonged out at this hour. His gray hair was neatly combed, and he walked with this straight-backed posture like an old soldier or a man trying hard not to show his age. He didn't say much, just nodded when I greeted him. He held a single folded dollar bill between two fingers. No phone, no wallet. He bought a bottle of spring water and a small roll of peppermints. I told him the total, and while I rang him up, he stared at me. Not in a creepy way, not at first, just kind of intense. His eyes were this dull hazel color, but they caught the store lights in a strange way, like there was something too alert behind them. It gave me a weird feeling in my gut. When I handed him his change, that's when it happened. His hand shot forward and grabbed my wrist, not hard at them, not painfully, but tight, controlled, like he'd practiced the exact pressure to use so it wouldn't leave a mark but would still freeze me in place. I looked at him stunned. He leaned in close. His breath smelled like peppermint and dirt. I know that sounds weird, but I swear it smelled like soil, like he'd just been digging in a garden or a grave. Then he said, slow and clear, "Be careful, girl. There's a devil all the time." And just like that, he let go. He slipped his stuff into his shirt pocket and walked out. The door chimed. I stood there stunned. I didn't hear a car start. I didn't hear footsteps. I peeked out the window. Nothing. It was like he'd vanished into the dark. Just gone. It got worse on Monday. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I told myself it was just a weird old man. Maybe a little senile or dramatic. Small towns get folks like that. But 3 nights later, Monday, something happened that still makes my skin crawl. It had been raining that night. The store was quiet with only the sound of water tapping the windows and the low hum of the fridge compressors. I was getting ready to close out the drawer. Technically, we stayed open, but after 1 a.m., nobody came in. I'd still make coffee for the locals who knew I was there. At exactly 1:03 a.m., headlights lit up the front window. Then they vanished. No one came inside. I walked over to look. A white panel van sat by the gas pumps. No logo, no license plates, just blank silent metal. Something in my chest went tight. I didn't move. I watched. Then the passenger door opened. A figure stepped out, hooded sweatshirt pulled low, black mask over the face, walking fast, like he had a purpose. He came straight toward the door. I caught a flash of something in his hand, a gun. He came in. No hesitation. I raised my hands immediately. He didn't yell, just pointed to the register and barked, "Open it." I did what he said. He grabbed the cash, stuffing it into a small duffel bag. Then he said, "The safe." I told him the truth. It was on a time lock. He swore under his breath, spun on his heel, and bolted. He jumped back in the van, which peeled off into the night. Tires kicking up rainwater, no headlights. It all happened so fast I barely remembered to press the silent alarm. The man behind the wheel police showed up 10 minutes later. I was still shaking when they arrived. I gave my statement, walked them through everything. They dusted for prints, but with the rain and the gloves, they didn't expect much. Then we went to check the security footage. We watched the man come in, grab the money, run. But when he got in the van, that's when I saw it. As the passenger door slammed shut, the dome light inside the van blinked on. Just for a second. In that moment, I saw the driver. He was older. Gray hair, pale blue shirt, narrow shoulders. Stiff posture, my stomach dropped. "It's him," I whispered. "That old man from Thursday." The cops looked at me. I could see the doubt in their eyes. But when they pulled Thursday's tape and we looked at both side by side, they matched. Same shirt, same khakis, same eerie posture. They couldn't trace the van, no plates, no leads. But they believed me enough to keep digging. What they found in the woods 2 days later, I got a call from a detective named Carter Mason. He told me they found a white van deep in the woods, on an old trail near Black Hollow Forest about 20 minutes from town. It was hidden behind a wall of thorny brush. Fresh tire tracks suggested it had been parked there recently, and right outside the driver's door, a footprint. It matched one lifted from the floor behind the register. The next morning, a team searched the area around the van. That's when they found the camp. It was tucked between huge, mossy rocks, half-collapsed tents, a folding table, plastic crates full of stolen cigarettes, snacks, and stacks of scratch tickets. All stolen from gas stations and convenience stores across 3 counties. And huddled in that camp were 3 men. 2 of them were in their 20s, with criminal records from out of state. But the third, it was him, the old man. His name was Eugene Lyle, 72 years old, from somewhere near Little Rock. When the troopers handcuffed him, he didn't fight or even flinch. He just stared off into the trees and muttered almost like a prayer. Calm as wind through pine. There's a devil all the time. But that wasn't the end. They cleared out the camp. My boss fixed up the store, added extra lights outside, even installed a second clerk shift at night. For safety. People came by just to ask if I was okay. I smiled. I said I was fine. But I wasn't. Because the week after the arrests, Detective Mason called me again. They'd gone back out to search the forest. Deeper in, way off the trail, they found another site. This one was older. Falling apart, just scraps of tarp clinging to branches, animal bones scattered around. In the middle, a fire pit filled with burnt coins and melted wristwatches. And in those ashes, they found a half-melted driver's license. It belonged to a gas station clerk who'd vanished after a robbery in Vermont. 3 years ago, the 2 younger men started talking right away. But Eugene? He stayed quiet, wouldn't answer questions, wouldn't explain the fire pit or the license, wouldn't say where they'd been hiding before this. Except when the room went quiet, and they thought the camera had stopped recording, he whispered things. Strings of numbers. Dates maybe, and always that one creepy phrase. There's a devil all the time. It still doesn't feel over. I still work at Rusty's. The night shift feels different now. Like the shadows stretch a little longer. Like the quiet isn't so peaceful anymore. We keep the lights on bright. We lock the doors after midnight unless we know the customer. We have backup now, but even with all that, I get this feeling sometimes. Like someone's watching from just beyond the pumps. Just out of view. Like maybe Eugene Lyle wasn't warning me about something he'd seen. Maybe he was warning me about something he was. Because every time I close up now and stare out into the dark, I remember what he said and I believe it. There's a devil all the time. You ever get that weird feeling like something terrible happened and you just barely missed it? Like the world shifted by an inch and you somehow stepped over the crack without knowing? For me, that feeling lives inside a cold January morning back in 1997. I was 18, living in the tiny town of Elridge, Missouri. Just me, my mom, and my younger brother in a creaky 2-bedroom house that smelled like old carpet and burnt toast. I worked the early shift at Dusty's fuel stop, out near the edge of town, right where the highway turns to nothing. That Monday wasn't supposed to be mine. I had swapped shifts with Kathy Lee, a sweet older lady who always brought me peanut butter cookies and called everyone darlin'. I needed the afternoon free for a geometry retake. I hated math, but I figured one test was better than a 5 a.m. alarm. That trade still haunts me. I woke up late that morning around 6:10 to our phone ringing. Not the usual dull buzz, but that shrill, panicked ring you can feel in your bones. My manager, Dale, was on the other end. Now Dale was a guy who could talk through a tornado and still make it sound boring, but not that morning. His voice was hollow, like he'd been punched in the chest and never caught his breath again. "Tommy," he said, real quiet. "Can you come down to the station? There's been an incident." "An incident?" I remember repeating like an idiot. "There's been a break-in. Police are here. Kathy and the others." He trailed off. "Just get here, son." I threw on my flannel, jeans and my scuffed-up work boots, grabbed the keys to my old red Ford Ranger and drove straight there, heart thumping so loud it sounded like a drumline in my ears. When I pulled into the lot, I slammed the brakes. The place was crawling with cop cars, flashing blue and red like a messed-up Christmas. Yellow tape fluttered in the wind like warning flags. And the cold. Man, that Missouri cold bit through my coat like it had teeth. A sheriff tried to stop me, but Dale saw me and waved me in. He looked like he hadn't slept in a year. His shirt was untucked and his hands were shaking. He pulled me aside and just said, "They're gone, Tommy, Kathy, Mel, even Dana, all gone." I didn't get it. "Gone where?" I asked, still not understanding. He didn't answer. Just looked past me like something was crawling on the walls. That's when I heard the ambulance doors slam shut. Bang! And everything suddenly felt real and wrong. Inside the store, it was like time had frozen. The overhead lights were off, just the green emergency exit signs glowing faintly. The air smelled thick and wrong, burned coffee, motor oil, and something metallic. The safe behind the counter was wide open, the drawers pulled out like someone had ripped the place apart in a hurry. A cop led me to the back, to the storage room. I'll never forget what I saw. Kathy, 61. Mel, who was only 26 and always wore that same neon windbreaker, and Dana, 34, who just started working there a few months ago. They were lying on the concrete floor, face down, arms tucked under their chests like they were told to lie that way. Each had a single bullet wound to the back of the head. No struggle, no mess. Just 3 bodies, neatly lined up. The blood had already soaked into the floor, dark and sticky, and there was this smell, gunpowder mixed with engine grease. I swear it got inside my nose and stayed there for days. I barely made it outside before I threw up behind the propane cage. My breath turned white in the freezing air, but I was sweating like I'd run 5 miles. The news vans showed up by 9. Elridge isn't the kind of place where big things happen, so this was a circus. Reporters called it the worst crime the town had ever seen. Dale told them nothing. He just sat on the curb staring into space. The police questioned me for hours. Who had keys? Who got fired? Who acted strange? And one name came up more than once. Dorian Vale. Dorian was 22, tall as a tree and creepy in that quiet way. He used to manage the night shift until he got fired a few months back for stealing cash and cigarettes. I remember he didn't say a word when Dale let him go. Didn't yell. Didn't argue. Just stood there staring at all of us like he was saving our faces for later. The police said they thought Dorian came in just before sunrise, maybe with a buddy. Forced the women to open the safe, walked them to the back and shot them one by one. The weird part? No fingerprints. No footprints. Nothing. Like he'd floated in and out. They showed his mugshot on the news that night. Long black hair, eyes like burnt matches. They warned he might still be in the area. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house sounded like a footstep. I kept imagining Dorian in the hallway standing just outside my door, holding a pistol with a homemade silencer. The station closed for nearly a month. On February 15th, someone called in a tip. Said Dorian had bragged about it to some girl in a bar 2 towns over, but by the time they got a warrant, he was long gone. Could have been Oklahoma. Could have been Canada. They caught his cousin a week later, a guy named Vic Vale. He was driving Dorian's old Buick and had a pistol in the glove box. He wouldn't talk at first, but eventually he admitted to driving the getaway car. He did 10 years. Said Dorian planned the whole thing. Dorian? He vanished. Dusty's reopened that spring. New paint, new pumps, even a security system with flashing red lights. But I never went back. I quit. Got a job at the hardware store instead. Less money, but fewer ghosts. Still, I'd drive past sometimes. Just to look. Just to wonder. What if I hadn't swapped shifts? What if I'd noticed something off about Dorian before? The years went by. Elridge got a Taco Bell, a new high school, but people never forgot about Dusty's. They never forgot about Kathy, Mel, and Dana. The blood never washed out of that concrete, not really. In 1999, Unsolved Files did an episode on the murders. Then Cold Case America picked it up in 2002. Both ended the same way, blurry silhouette walking into the dark, and that same caption, "The suspect remains at large." This past summer, 26 years later, I went to a candlelight vigil they held outside the store. The families brought photos. Kathy at her daughter's wedding, Mel holding a fishing rod grinning like a kid, Dana in scrubs from nursing school, which she never got to finish. The preacher asked if anyone who worked with them wanted to say a few words. I didn't plan to, but I stepped forward anyway. I told them how Kathy once fixed my truck's starter in the parking lot during her lunch break, because she hated hearing it stall. How Mel brought jelly donuts every Friday. How Dana used to hum the same country song all day long, off-key and smiling. People cried. I cried. When the crowd cleared out, I stood by Pump 4 just looking. The lot was empty except for one tall guy leaning against the wall, hood up, hands in his coat pockets. He wasn't moving, just standing there watching. Something about the way he stood, shoulders squared, head tilted just a bit, stirred something in me. He turned slightly and I caught a glimpse of a tattoo peeking out from under his shirt. It was the outline of a black vulture, wings spread. Same one Dorian had inked on his ribs. My stomach flipped, just like it had that day by the propane cage. I didn't say anything. Didn't move. Then a semi rumbled past on the road. When it was gone, so was he. Maybe it was just a guy with a weird tattoo. Or maybe the past had circled back. Checking on its masterpiece, I didn't follow him. I got in my truck and drove home, fingers clenched around the steering wheel. Every now and then I glanced in the rearview mirror, expecting headlights to pop up behind me. None did. But even now, sometimes, when I'm driving late at night and the road's empty, I get this feeling, like someone's walking just behind the glow of my taillights, staying in step, waiting for the right moment to catch up. Do you ever get that weird feeling that someone's watching you even when you're alone? Yeah, this story is about that kind of night. Back in 2013, I got a third-shift job at this rundown gas station just outside Fairfield, Ohio. It was called Pete's Quick Stop, but everyone just called it Pete's. No one knew who Pete was. He probably died in the 80s, but the name stuck. I was 19, broke, and desperate for cash. Overnight work wasn't ideal, but the pay was all right and it seemed simple enough. Sweep the floors, restock the fridges, maybe ring up a pack of gum or a gas sale if anyone showed up. Most nights nothing happened. It was dead quiet. Boring even. My second night on my own was a Tuesday, supposed to be slow. Around 2:40 a.m. I finished all the indoor chores. I figured I'd take out the trash and tidy up the pump area before killing time until sunrise. The air was cold but not freezing. Just that sharp, still kind of cold that makes you feel like the whole world is holding its breath. I stepped outside with a black trash bag, tossing old receipts, candy wrappers, and crushed coffee cups into it. It was so quiet I could hear the buzzing from the overhead lights and the soft crunch of gravel under my boots. The street beyond the lot was dark, like it just disappeared. Even the crickets weren't chirping. I grabbed a jug of windshield washer fluid and started refilling the stations near each pump. The liquid made this weird sloshing sound inside the jug, loud in the silence. It echoed strangely like the pumps were talking back to me. That's when I started feeling weird. Like I wasn't alone anymore. Pete's was lit up like a lantern, but the edges of the lot faded into pitch black. I kept glancing at the shadows, half expecting something to move. Then I saw headlights at the end of the road. Okay, I thought. Just a customer. But it wasn't. As the car got closer, I saw it was a Fairfield police cruiser. It rolled in slow, like the officer was trying not to wake the pavement. But he wasn't scanning the area or doing a routine drive-by. No. His eyes were locked onto the inside of the store, straight at the cashier counter. He didn't even glance in my direction. The cruiser came to a sudden stop right outside the doors. The officer jumped out fast and rushed toward the entrance. That made me nervous. I dropped the jug near the pump and jogged after him, the trash bag swinging awkwardly in my hand. As soon as I walked in, the door chimed and he spun around like I'd shot a gun. His hand even twitched toward his belt. "Oh, hey," I said, trying not to sound freaked out. "Everything okay?" He let out a breath and gave a quick nod. "Yeah, sorry. You startled me." He looked around again, scanning the aisles. "Listen," he said. "The donut shop over on Colby Street just got hit. Robbery. Happened maybe 20 minutes ago. Colby was only 2 blocks away. They think the guy's still nearby," he added, lowering his voice. "Doesn't fit the usual pattern. Didn't take much cash. Looked like he wanted to scare people. Maybe hurt someone." I suddenly felt every light in that store shining too bright, too open. "Just keep the doors locked if you can. Call us if you see anything weird, even a little weird," I told him I would. The second he pulled out of the lot, I locked the doors behind him. Wasn't technically allowed to do that during business hours, but I didn't care. The next 30 minutes were the longest I'd ever felt. I walked in circles, checking the aisles, looking out the windows, glancing at the clock. Every noise made me jump. The hum of the fridge, the ice machine clanking to life, the soft flicker of the fluorescent lights. I kept imagining someone watching me from just outside the glass, smiling. At 3:30 a.m., another car pulled into the lot. No police lights this time, just an old rusted-out sedan, crawling along like it was looking for something, or someone. It parked in the far corner of the lot, half hidden behind the tall, untrimmed bushes that bordered the fence line. The engine stayed on. Nobody got out. I didn't move. I just stood behind the counter watching. 2 minutes passed, then 5. The car was still there. Just sitting, my hand found the store phone. I picked it up, heart thudding. I debated calling the police, but something told me to wait. Then the driver's side door creaked open. A man stepped out. He was tall, but walked with this hunched, jittery kind of motion. Like his joints didn't bend right. His hoodie was pulled up, shadowing most of his face, and his jeans looked soaked from the knees down. Like he'd been walking through something wet. He didn't go toward the door. He went to the pump, the same one I had just cleaned. He bent down slowly and picked something up, the empty jug of windshield fluid I had dropped. He just stared at it. Then, without turning his body, he looked up. And even across the lot, through the glass, I swear he looked me dead in the eyes. I couldn't breathe, couldn't blink. My hand was still holding the phone, but I couldn't remember how to dial. Then, just like that, he dropped the jug, turned around, got back in the car, drove off with the headlights still off. I stood frozen. He didn't try the door, didn't make a move toward the store. But everything about him, the way he moved, the way he looked at that jug, felt wrong. It was like he was saying, "I know you were here. I saw you. I could have come closer, but I didn't." 15 minutes later, a patrol car drove by. Slower than usual. I didn't wave them down. I didn't call. What would I say? A guy picked up a plastic jug and stared at me weird? It would sound ridiculous, but it didn't feel ridiculous. It felt personal. My replacement showed up at 6 a.m., yawning and sipping coffee like it was any other day. He laughed when he saw my face. Said I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I didn't laugh. I just went home. A couple nights later, before my shift, I caught the local news while waiting for my toast to pop up. The headline made my stomach turn cold. Police still searching for Colby Street attacker. They showed grainy footage from a surveillance camera. A man in a hoodie. Same height, same walk. That strange, not quite human gait. He didn't steal anything except one thing. The cashier's ID badge, that's it. Not the money. Not the phone. Just the badge. The reporter said something that stuck with me. They believe he's keeping the badge as a trophy. I sat there staring at the TV, toast burning in the toaster. A trophy. My mind shot back to the jug. What if he took things like that? Little tokens, souvenirs. What if that empty plastic jug was going to be one? Something worthless to anyone else, but important because I had touched it? He saw me, watched me, and then he left, without taking it. Not because he didn't want to, but because it wasn't time yet.